Hey everybody, it's Troy. Hey, listen, more examples coming out about just how corrupt this United States Supreme Court is, particularly on the conservative side with the conservative justices. This time it's Justice Samuel Alito. It's been reported by ProPublica that Samuel Alito was showered with gifts by a hedge fund manager, Paul Singer, and then refused to recuse himself even though he heard cases involving Singer's hedge fund more than 10 times. Check this out.
Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito took an undisclosed fishing trip to Alaska with billionaire donors, including hedge fund manager Paul Singer, who later had business before the court. Coupled with previous reporting on the relationship of Justice Clarence Thomas and Republican megadonor Harlan Crow, it raises serious ethical questions regarding the high court. Josh Kaplan is one of the ProPublica reporters who broke the story, and he joins me now. Josh, welcome back. At the heart of your story is this July 2008 trip that Alito took to Alaska, traveling there on a private plane paid for by that billionaire Paul Singer. His stay at the lodge also paid for by another major donor on the trip. Neither of those things was disclosed. So tell us a little bit about what your reporting revealed about that trip and why people think it should have been disclosed.
Singer was not just another guest on the trip. He provided Alito with a private jet to fly him across the country to Alaska. And if Alito had chartered that plane himself, it could have cost easily more than $100,000, we were told. And Alito didn't disclose any of this. It's been secret until now. And experts told us that he appears to have violated a government ethics law passed after Watergate that requires justices to disclose most gifts to the public.
That man, that billionaire Paul Singer, his hedge fund later had a case before the Supreme Court, a case that the court, as you reported, previously declined to take up, right? So why did the experts you talked to say that in this case, Alito should have recused himself from that case?
Alito didn't recuse himself in any of the more than at least 10 cases that Paul Singer had after the trip. And they said that experts said that they'd never heard of another example of a Supreme Court justice sitting on a case after receiving an expensive gift from one of the parties. There is a law that governs when justices must recuse themselves from the case, and it sets a very high standard, but a subjective standard. It's that if there is the appearance of impropriety, a justice must recuse. But when it comes to the Supreme Court, the only person that interprets that standard, the sole arbiter of when a justice should recuse from a case, is the justice, him or herself.
Hedge fund manager Paul Singer chartering a very, very expensive fly fishing trip for Samuel Alito, an in-kind contribution that would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars if Samuel Alito had paid for that trip himself. And then Samuel Alito hearing cases before the Supreme Court involving Singer's hedge fund. This is absolutely corrupt. This violates, to the letter of the law, this violates ethics standards. Alito should have at least reported the in-kind contributions, the contributions from Singer. They weren't even reported. If any low-level government employee had even taken modest gifts, they would have needed to report those gifts, and if not, they would have lost their job. Apparently, there's two standards when it comes to federal ethics involving gifts, involving donors. Alito not even reporting these gifts. Clearly, he was trying to hide them. At the very least, he should have reported them, but he should have recused himself from hearing those cases. Over 10 cases involving Singer's hedge fund, including cases where Alito ruled in favor of Singer's company after taking massive gifts. This is complete corruption at the highest level of the Supreme Court. It reveals once again that the Supreme Court operates in darkness. It self-polices. It is up to the justices themselves whether or not they will recuse themselves from cases, and it's now been shown time and time again with Justice Clarence Thomas and with Justice Alito that these justices, that this court cannot be trusted to self-police, cannot be trusted to recuse themselves from cases that involve massive conflicts of interest. Can you imagine learning about this? Can you imagine if the lawyers on the opposing side of some of these cases The clients on the opposing side of some of these cases that lost their case before the Supreme Court to Singer, to his hedge fund, and now they're learning that Alito was taking massive gifts from Singer in support of that hedge fund. This is not justice. This is a bastardization of justice, and further demonstrates just how off the rails this Supreme Court has gone. For his part, Alito has released an op-ed stating that the ProPublica article is misleading, claiming that he did nothing wrong. He had it was not required for him to recuse. There was no reason for him to recuse, so he's defending himself. It's been reported, however, that he released the op-ed prior to the ProPublica article coming out, so he had advanced knowledge that this ProPublica article would be coming out talking about this corruption. He responded with an op-ed defending himself. But how can the American people continue to trust the decisions of this Supreme Court, the Supreme Court that has removed bodily autonomy for women in the United States, have rendered 50% of this population as second-class citizens? This court that's hearing cases on voting rights in this country, environmental law, huge civil rights, huge cases coming before this court, this 6-3 conservative Supreme Court. And now at least 2 of the justices on this court have been involved in massive ethics violations. If this was any other member of our government, their demands for their resignation would be immediate. But once again, the Supreme Court operates in this shadow world where we have absolutely no idea what they're doing. And it's self-policing, so there's not much anyone can do about it. Alito needs to resign along with Clarence Thomas. We need to have at least these 2 justices off this court. They are corrupt, they are unfit to serve, and they are tainting the justice system. The entire judicial branch in this country is corrupted because of the actions of these 2. Unbelievable corruption on the highest court in the land. For MeidasTouch, this is Troy. Remember, smash that subscribe button to keep supporting independent media.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.